Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Ellsworth here at rooferscoffeeshop.com, and you are watching a Lunch and Learn. And today we're talking about a smarter way to evaluate roofs, Roof Walking 101. And I'm here with Lane Reed from Mulehide, and this Lunch and Learn is sponsored by Mulehide, so thank you for that. Hi, Lane. How are you?
Hello, Megan. I'm doing terrific. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm excited that we're talking about this. This is a really exciting topic, and something that'll really bring a lot of wisdom and knowledge and information to the people in the office watching this. That's who our Lunch and Learn audience is. So thank you for being here with me. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role at Mulehide?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Lane Reed. I'm the regional director for Mulehide. So I cover the southwest part of the region for Mulehide. I've been here at Mulehide going on next year will be 10 years.
Ah,
I served as a territory manager with Mulehide for 7 years in Central, South, and West Texas area. And for the past 3 years, I've been in this new role. So I'm excited.
awesome.
Mulehide's a great company to work for, and we have a great team. Prior to that, I've been with some other manufacturers in the past, and also worked with some commercial roofing contractors doing sales and estimating with them. So altogether, I've been in this industry a little over 23 years.
Wow.
Um, and I'm just proud to be a part of this industry. Quite frankly, it's a terrific one to be in.
I couldn't agree more with you. I love roofing. I love the construction and the trades industries. So I'm glad to be here too. And thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself. So for today's Lunch and Learn, as I said before, we're talking about Roof Walking 101, and we have 3 learning objectives for you all. And the first one is how to strengthen your approach to interior and exterior roof evaluation. Learning objective number 2 is how to build a systematic method for roof walks that reveals the most common failure points. And then learning objective number 3 is using testing and on-roof evidence to develop accurate repair, coating, or re-roof recommendations for your clients. So we're going to start with obviously learning objective number 1, and that is how to strengthen your approach to interior and exterior roof evaluation. So Lane, what are the first steps to properly analyze a roof?
Yeah, this is the most important part of any opportunity that you may have to go and look at a building. So if someone gives you a call, and this is obviously for existing buildings, and you get an opportunity to come out. Typically, there's probably a leak or something going on that building owner has reached out to a contractor or somebody to determine what's going on. So initially, a lot of contractors may come to the property and they want to go straight to the roof. Um, that is not what you should do. So from
Mhm.
the get go, you always want to walk the underside of the building first. If there's drop ceilings and things like this, you may have to ask if you could actually pop your head up and pop a ceiling towel. You really
Okay.
would like to see the bottom side of the deck as well. But during this inside inspection process, you're going to try to determine where these links are coming from, where the leaks are coming from. So typically, if
Got it.
there's 1, 2, or 3 different leaks, you want to determine that from inside the building, and you're going to walk off in steps from 2 different walls to help determine from the inside where that roof leak is once you go to the top side of the roof. So that's one, is really try to get some sort of visual, and you'll have a pad and paper, and you're gonna walk out your steps, and you're gonna put 10 steps from one wall, you maybe 15 steps from another wall, and you'll put an X there. Now, if you can actually pop your head up underneath the ceiling tile there, or
Yeah.
whatever, what would be ideal is hopefully when you pop that ceiling tile, you're going to see maybe a penetration or a curb or something like that in the roof deck itself,
Hmm.
because typically that's where leaks are. That'll also give you a visual once you get up onto the rooftop itself. So, so the internal inspection is key.
Yep.
The other things that we're going to look for is what type of deck is it? Is it a concrete deck? Is it a metal deck? Is it a wood deck? Is it a gypsum deck, lightweight concrete, Tectum? There's so many different roof decks. You need to know what type of deck it is, because that's also going to probably affect how this is leaking and where the leaks are coming from. So if it is indeed a metal deck, then the flutes will determine which way that roof leak may go, depending if the flutes are running left to right or north south, whatever the geography may be. Water may hit that deck and in the flute, and it may flow to 20 feet somewhere to the other side of the building, perhaps. So you got
Got
to
it.
make sure that you're in line with trying to visually determine where this leak source may be coming from.
Got it.
So that's in terms of finding leaks. The other thing that this initial inspection from inside is you want to determine if there's any visual damage to the decking, rusted metal areas, structural concerns, rotten wood decking. All of that is would need to potentially be replaced if we go into a re-roof scenario.
Yeah.
And lastly, and most importantly, almost, is you got to see a lot of times in the commercial buildings, they may have conduit lines that run along the bottom side of these decks, a lot of times on metal decks and wood decks.
Okay.
Sometimes they don't give any spacing for these. So the last thing you want to do is, if we're doing some sort of a re-roof or in a scenario, even when we're tearing off and we're going to mechanically fasten back down into that roof deck, the last thing you want to do is run a screw or something through some conduit lines and things like that.
Yeah.
So these are all the types of things that you can determine before you even get to the top side of the roof. So visual inspection from underneath the roof deck is key, and the first thing you should always be doing.
I love it. That's such good advice. So I'd love to kind of ask, how do you map those leak locations once they're found? I mean, step counts, exterior visual cues. What is that? Some of that internal information you should know.
Yeah, it's you have to, like, that's where the hard part could be is um you in terms of trying to get close from the bottom and then taking that information up to the top.
Yeah.
um Stepping off from two walls will at least get you close. The
Okay.
next thing you can do is, if there's a window or door or something, what you want to do is, within the sight lines of where this leak is, look outside a window and try to get an object that you can see from the rooftop.
Oh,
Maybe if there's a really nice Corvette sitting out there, and it's in the sight line
hmm.
for where that leak is, then that'll also give you a visual. Once you get to the rooftop, you can always look outside, and there'll be potentially a tree, a bush, maybe a sign or something that's going to also help you determine that, hey, I'm on the right line. That's my outside cue. I have my roof steps stepping off from the two same walls. Once we get to the rooftop, we're gonna take those steps from both those areas, and that should put us hopefully within reason to start looking and assessing what could be the issue or problem and where's the leak source.
Okay. Okay. Amazing. So how do they recognize those early structural concerns like the rusted decking, the rotten substrate, or those hidden conduit lines that may affect safety? And how do they? I mean, that's pretty just obvious to the eye,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it should be. It should be, but it's very hard to do a really good thorough exam. Again, if especially if it's got sheetrock,
Yeah.
hopefully what you're hoping for is you'll be able to get in there and there'll be a drop ceiling where you can pop the ceiling tiles and you can actually get up. You're going to have a ladder so that you can get up and poke your head up above the tiles and look from underneath.
Got it.
In this early stage right here as well, you're asking a bunch of questions to what are the building manager or building owner, whoever's there that has the knowledge in regards to where this is leaking, how long it's been leaking, things like that.
Yeah.
Those would be areas that obviously you would see potential signs of rusted metal, rotten decking, things of that nature. So that's easy and per se, but to get a real thorough exam of the entire underside of the roof deck could be difficult. But
Okay.
those are the types of things, again, asking a ton of questions to the person that's walking and escorting you around should give you some cues and signs to determine what's going on with this roof. And once you've identified the roof deck itself, you should be able to understand and know where you may have those potential areas of issues.
Got it. Amazing. Okay. So where do you, once you're on top of the roof, let's talk about some of where those leaks usually are, like around the perimeter edge walls, penetrations, curbs, all of that. And talk about once you're up there, what are your next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So now that you have all of this knowledge from below, we're going to take this to the rooftop.
Mm-hmm.
And always, now, if you're going just to evaluate a specific leak, then you can simply go, leak hunting at that point in time. However, you're up there. You might as well take a look at the entire roof while you're there. And then you can also still do that leak investigation, whether it's 1, 2, 3 leaks, whatever. But ultimately, all roof walks should always start at the perimeter of the building.
Got it.
So once you put your ladder up, or if you're going to come off, walk the roof again, maybe that building owner is still with you. Chances are, or building owner's rep, chances are they kind of have an idea of where those leaks are and potential issues because they've been up there a few times. So they may be
Yeah.
able to point out the obvious. But once you're up there, this is your chance to now go out and make your own evaluation and not rely on somebody else's word
Mm-hmm.
or what they've seen and things like that. So once you do just kind of a general walk, you'll always want to walk the perimeter first. 80 to 90% of all leaks are always at the perimeter,
Got it.
edge, walls, penetrations, curbs, things like that. So obviously, always start everything at the perimeter. And while you're walking the perimeter, you're always going to want to be taking photos. You want to make sure you're capturing any
Got
and
it.
all potential issues, things like that. So that's where you always want to start all of your roof walks is at the edge and around the perimeter. So some of the things that you will typically find in these types of when you're walking that perimeter is with like a typical built up roof or say modified roof. If you have a drip edge condition there. So typically with the drip edge, you have metal that's spliced together every 10 feet. Well, a lot of times as that metal and that building moves, if it's old enough, it can create splits right there where those two metal pieces meet, and it can affect the membrane right there and split that. So just walking that edge along there, you may find every 10 feet you could have potential splits or issues with the membrane opening up right there. So that's one
Okay.
thing. Your vertical wall seams are always an issue. With a lot of the roofing is single ply these days, but modified and built up roofs are still great at roofs as well. And most of the roofs you're going to be inspecting were probably installed further back. So you're probably going to see built up and modified.
Okay.
And Did they use proper cant strips for that if there's walls? But a lot of time you'll see right at that 45-degree angle on the flashing with the modified roof, you're going to see open seams there, and they can even open up vertically up the wall because they just didn't get seen properly, and those are all potential leak spots and issues. One of the most common that you'll always find, it's almost guaranteed all the time, is lack of sealant in pitch pans. Okay. It's one of the more easier ones that you can go and find. So around any AC joint, AC unit where there's conduit and pitch pan opportunities, they use traditional old asphalt back in those days. That tends to settle. It gets hard. It cracks. It opens. That's a perfect opportunity for water to get into the building. These are all opportunities for potential repairs as you're building this potential solution when you take it back down to the roof owner. So the other thing you always want to be looking for, the nice thing about our industry is there's pretty much industry standards for all manufacturers. Termination points, edge details, things like that. They're pretty universal along the way. So if you see something that is not normal or typical, these are, again, areas that water can penetrate, get into the roof system and things like that. But again, all you're trying to do is build a case to make sure you can identify what is potentially wrong with this roof. Missing coping cleats. We'll see a lot of coping metal that has been screwed down onto the horizontal surface.
Oh.
And that's a direct hole right into the building, right into the potentially the flashing behind it. So those are pretty easy ones to put to point out.
Yeah.
One of the other more obvious conditions is also ponding or standing water conditions. Every manufacturer is going to require positive drainage. The only roof that you may see that can even sort of withstand ponding conditions is old school coal tar pitch roofs. They built those a lot of times a lot more flatter than we tend to these days, but water sitting on a roof is never a good idea. So you always want to just point out, if we are going to re-roof this, now it's bringing up opportunities for, do we need tapered insulation? Do we need crickets or saddles or things like that to help improve the current drainage of that existing system? Another one that goes along with that is clogged drains. If you're ever on schools, you're going to find every single sort of ball that is out there to mankind, and they all find the drain. So baseballs, soccer balls. The soccer balls are not going to go down the drain, but the big old school rubber balls are up there. I mean, you'll find any and everything.
I recently heard about someone finding a raccoon in a scupper.
Sure. Anything, any and everything. It's amazing what you'll find out up there. So check those. The easiest fix there is to fix some things, but a lot of times it may just be the strainers themselves, the domes. Those are simple and easy repairs. Again, we're just pointing out potential issues. Some other things, again, more universal in terms of manufacturing requirements, but just target patches at the right areas where they're needed, things like that. So these are all the types of things. These are all pretty typical, but there's multiple things that you potentially can find. Every time you get on a roof, there's a new opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what you will find when you get up on the roof. We've seen full-blown gardens growing up on the roofs, right? So just be prepared for anything once you actually get to the rooftop.
Absolutely. And that's all a part of Learning Objective 2, which is building a systematic method, but like Lane, you just said that you can have that systematic method for every roof walk, but there might always be something new being thrown at you that you're adding to that method. You're adding to that list of things to check. So once you've walked the perimeter, you kind of have your system and your method down on that aspect. What's next?
Yeah, so now we're going to move more into the field of the roof.
Got it.
And there's all kinds of potential issues there as well, but this would be more related to the membrane itself or just potential little details that you may notice and things like that. Again, typically you're not going to find leaks per se in the middle of the roof. If the install was done correctly, you're typically not going to find that. But you can still find potential issues with the existing membrane, whether it's a built-up roof, gravel, modified, existing single plies, whatever. So some of the things you're going to want to look for there is if it's a built-up roof or gravel, look for what's called crazing and or cracks, open seams, punctures, blisters. Again, you could certainly get tears and splits in the field of the roof. I have been up on many gravel built-up roofs. The problem is you cannot see what's underneath that gravel.
Right.
So if you did the proper inspection from below and you've got your identified leak area and you get up there and you are in the field of the roof, you have to be cautious here because you don't want to create any more damage. But in order to find a leak, you may actually have to do a little bit of spudding or removing of that gravel and really get down to see what's wrong with that existing membrane. And I found splits within built-up roofs that are 6-7 feet long where the membrane is just literally opened up there for whatever reason. You're never going to see that unless you displace that gravel. Okay. So these are all things you can do. In terms of membrane, whether it's early weathering concerns, exposed scrim, granule loss on modified gravel displacement on old school built up roofs. If it's single ply, typically, if the roof's lived its life and it's 25, 30 years old and it's obviously the roof's done its job. It's ready to get replaced. Okay. So, but if you're on a newer single ply roof and something doesn't look right, then there could be some early weathering issues with that particular membrane. Things like that may happen. Just some simple, easy things like missing slip sheets under conduit lines and AC wood runners. You'd never want something just sitting directly on top of your membrane without some sort of protective layer underneath. Another thing is just real easy to identify is missing walk pads at proper locations, specifically if an NDL warranted system. You may want to suggest them at AC units if they're not there. Maybe you've identified a couple leaks. You think we can fix these leaks. But again, while we're up here, Mr. Building Owner, we think we can do some improvements here that'll help this existing roof last longer, specifically around your AC units, so that when your guys come to service those, they're not going to damage that existing roof. So, and lastly, this is really, really important. If indeed the solution is to re-roof the project, I don't care if you're going to end up doing a full tear off or if you're going to do an existing re-roof. Walking this roof and doing a proper analysis, you must account for curbs, windows, doors, weep holes. These are all conditions that need to be identified because if we're doing a recover, if our existing curbs only allow us 3 inches of vertical height, and we come in and put down a 1-inch board or even a 3-inch board then you're going to have to raise those units. The other thing we see all the time is sight lines and things like this. There's windows, there's other concerns where we're running up against the wall. And a lot of times, unfortunately, even during new construction, those windows, they don't give us enough room to from the existing initial project. And so we may only have 3 inches there. And again, if we're adding a recover board or whatever, now we have nothing to terminate properly up and over those windows. Weep holes is another. You never want to cover weep holes in existing brick and facade like that. That's for the brick and things to allow moisture out of the brick itself. So you never want to bring termination up and over those concerns. Those right there, if you're going to do a proper re-roof, will hopefully provide you to never have that big uh-oh moment once you've already started the project. So key always on this initial analysis. So in quite simply, what you've done by doing all of this, your internal inspection, your walking the perimeter, identifying all of those potential issues, the field of the roof and all of those potential issues, that's going to allow you to at least at a minimum have a case that you can bring back down to the building owner's rep. I live in Texas, so walking a roof in July, it's not fun. And so most building owners are probably going to say, have at it. And then you come down and tell me what's up. So, so that's, again, there's a purpose for all of this. And at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is make sure you have all the critical information that now will allow you to start talking solutions. So that's what we've accomplished by doing these 3 initiative walks, if you will, inside, perimeter, field. It's giving you all of the potential answers to start talking about solutions.
Yeah, that is so great. So we covered, like you said, learning objective 1, which is that interior and exterior roof evaluation, and learning objective 2, which was building that systematic method. So starting at the perimeter, going into the field. And then now we're going to move into learning objective 3, which is using testing and on-roof evidence to develop, accurate repair, coating, or re-roof recommendations for that home or building owner in this case. So what are core cuts and why are they essential for determining, deck type, insulation condition, roof layers, slope, all that stuff?
Absolutely. So with any analysis, a core must be done. I will urge you to always, always, always be sure you get approval first and ask. That you never really you don't want to cut into somebody's roof without approval first. But if they don't give you that approval, then it's going to be hard for you to come up with real good solutions at that point, because it's harder for you to determine what needs to be done, materials needed, and things like that. So when in doubt, most building owners realize that this is necessary, and as long as you repair it properly, you should be good. So what we're trying to identify here with these core cuts is, again, what is our deck type? So we've done our internal inspection, and we can look from underneath and verify what that is. Right. But you still want to verify from the top side just to make sure there's no anomaly out there or something is going on, right? Second, now we're starting to try to figure out this physical type core test will, at a minimum, wherever you take the cores, will identify if there's any wet insulation or saturated, if you will. I mean, if you start cutting into a core and literally you get water coming back at you, you can probably stop right there. But essentially you still need to know what's in there, how much, and things like that, because you're going to be tearing all that stuff off.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to find out how many roofs are on there, right? You never want to put any more than 2 roofs on an existing building. So you need to determine, has this roof already been retrofitted or re-roofed in the past? So that's also going to give you that information, so that, again, you can start to build out what your solution is going to be.
Yeah.
These cores are going to tell you how long is your screw length going to be. If you're doing a tear off, this is one of the bigger potential issues that a contractor could potentially miss, is if you're doing a full tear off and you don't understand how much insulation is there, then you can't properly determine how many dumpsters you may need for the project.
Right.
And, if I'm not doing this, I'm going into the dumpster business, because they are not cheap. So if there's any dumpster folks out there looking for anybody, if I ever don't make it here at Mule High, call me. But it's super important. It's super important. That's going to tell you how much of this tear off and how many of these dumpsters I'm going to need, right?
Yeah.
So very key. And lastly, what it's going to tell us is, how is this roof sloped? So at a minimum, you're always want to you want to take 2 cores at a minimum. If you get approval, say I want to take 2 cores, this should at least at a minimum give me an idea of what I need to do. We're going to take 1 core at the high side, and we're going to take 1 core at the low side. And what that's going to tell us is, if I take my high side core and I only have 3.5 inches of insulation, and I go down to my low side core, and I have 3.5 inches of insulation, but we can clearly see it's got a 1/4 inch slope, then we know that building is sloped through the structural decking. That is awesome. That is awesome. Yep. Now that will tell you, if I'm doing a re-roof scenario or a full tear off or what have you, I'm not going to need a full taper design and layout. Okay. I may still need taper crickets and or saddles between drains, things like that, in a re-roof scenario, but I'm not going to have to build that expense of a full taper design. So that is key. If you take your core on the high side and you're at 8 or 9 inches, you go to your bottom side and you get down to 1.5 inches or 2 of insulation, then now you know that that's been sloped with tapered insulation. Okay. So those are all things that are going to, along with your roof analysis, these 2 core cuts will at a minimum be able to give you these 5 criteria that will help you to build whatever that solution is going to be. So it's key that you need to do these to make sure we identify all of these options within the existing roof system itself.
Got it. Okay. Huge, massive. So next, let's talk about blisters, punctures, surfacing crazing, and early weathering, and what tests can be done to confirm and solve those problems.
Yeah. So these pictures are just common potential, as you're going around looking at these potential issues. Again, you want to make sure it's wherever you're at, it's hot or it's cold or whatever. These guys are not going to want to get up on the roof mainly. Right. So put your report together, build these photos in there. So when you sit down, you can show that here's the physical evidence. It's not just me. Here it is based on your roof. Show the core that you took. Show the core cut. I always like to also get a underside of the deck, so you don't just see it. Now, a couple of these photos here, you may see this is just in the exterior itself. Leaks can happen, and a lot of times the roofer always gets the call. And doing this as long as I have, a lot of times we go out there and it's something in the vertical wall, or Hopefully it's an AC, condensation, something like that.
Yeah.
But these are just all ways that'll show you look at everything. So on the top left there, what you'll see is that is one of those splits that's in the middle of the field on the built
Oh,
up
I
gravel
see.
roof. Okay.
Okay.
So again, those are hard to identify if that's all covered up.
Yep.
These are just showing some again at the perimeter. This is very common to see membrane pulling back from the roof edge. The bottom left just shows you at that 45-degree angle on modifieds where you can potentially get splits there. That happens on any roof technically, but
Yeah.
on some of the older school modifieds, you may see some of that. The picture to the bottom right, poor pitch pan design again. And then like even in the bottom middle, a lot of times you'll see old repairs done with traditional old school. We'll just call it Pookie. That's an industry term that I
Yeah.
think everyone will understand. Look, we have this type of product, so a lot of people do. It has its place, but for a long-term repair, asphalt does not weather. It doesn't have elongation.
Mm.
It will dry cure, it gets hard, and it'll just pop and get weak. So it's a very it's just not a good long-term repair. So again, these are all the types of things that you may see out there that you can identify. And again, you're bringing this all down to the building owner.
Photos are so important.
Yeah. So again, just some more common conditions here. On the bottom right, you'll see a single ply membrane where you're getting some of that crazing effect, or where you're getting some scrim to show, things like that. Skylight damage. I'm sorry. I would love to tell you that your roof's leaking, but no, I'm sorry. You got a crack in your skylight, right?
Yeah.
So this is something we see all the time too. Again, above the roof. Look, you're up there. If you're a roofing contractor, you're a waterproofer essentially.
Yep.
You have to understand how the roof meets up against other vertical conditions and things like that. So see this all the time where you have a vertical wall that literally is just wide open. This design here on the two top left, the angle iron flashing that's underneath was actually bent back.
Oh, wow.
Water. So if you see that the middle top there, you can
Yeah.
almost see rusting where literally water was sitting on that pan, if you will. It wasn't running out, so it didn't have pitch to it to run off the roof. It actually ran back into the building. And just this was just horrible. So,
Yeah. That's not good.
so again, maybe that's not going to be a roofing necessarily issue, but if you're going to touch this
Right.
roof in a re-roof scenario, you're going to need to address that and how we tie into that and fix that potential issue. A typical open seam, bottom left, just on a modified, things like that. Overall conditions of what I would say standing water.
Yep.
Standing water is what this is by far the easiest thing that you could point out to anybody. My kids could come up and look at a roof and say, yeah, that doesn't look good.
Yeah.
But you got to know why that's not good, especially on
Yep.
old school modified built up roof, asphalt based roof. Water sitting on a roof is not good. One, it can create mold and fungus. Things can
Right.
grow in there. Again, I've seen roots take hold down into old school gravel built up roofs. So
Yeah.
the other thing is structural. Water is extremely heavy. And if the building isn't designed properly, when these buildings are all figured out, they're all engineered with a certain capacity of load. And if we have 3 inches of water standing up there, that could create deflection within the roof system, things like that. But the scariest thing, it could potentially collapse a building. So
Yeah.
these are true concerns. Ponding conditions is one. Standing water is a whole nother.
Yeah.
but it could be extremely dangerous. So
Yeah.
you got to really, really be sure that you're always building and designing to positive uh, slope on any and all roof structures.
Yeah.
Here's just some conditions that again are pretty common. The top left there, that's a metal coping on a parapet wall. Again, where you have a screw screwed right down on the horizontal surface itself. You can see where water sat there. The screws rusted out. The metal panel starting to rust out. That's doing nobody any good right there. So again, you never want to attach metal surfaces onto flat surfaces. A little bit of a seam issue here on the next one, top middle there, with some potential scrim being showed there. Again, this is maybe just the roof that's lived its life. But again, even that little niche there, that would be something you might want to strip in. To top right there, this curb wasn't flashed properly. They just ran the membrane to the base of this curb and put Pookie and sealant on it, and those need to be flashed properly. Lack of termination. So, like the bottom left,
Yeah.
lack of termination at vertical surfaces. No membrane should not have some sort of termination in it to have a compression seal against the structural behind it. Okay.
Right.
That all kinds of issues could happen here. So follow all good roofing practices, but these are simple, easy things when you're walking the roof to identify these types of conditions. And lastly, you see this all the time where we have conduit going directly down into a roof and there's no proper pitch pan detail or something like that. I'm sorry, but that is not going to hold.
No.
These AC units, as they pop on and off all the time, they're constantly moving. The conduit lines are going to be moving. And even though our membranes today are really made uh, to be able to deal with movement, elongation, and things like that, over a 3 to 5 year period of constant, along with all of the conditions of the environment, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, that building is constantly moving. It's getting stress on it. So it's doing a lot up there. Yeah, it's protecting your roof, but it goes through all kinds of conditions depending
Right.
on the region you're at. So proper detail is key, key, key. It's why we have them. It's why NRCA, again, industry standard for pretty much all manufacturers that do what we do. There's these very common details that need to be met. And
Yep.
so, pictures say 1,000 words to me. It
Yep.
helps prove your point. And so that's why you always want to take some of these conditions. And these are just some of the more common ones that you'll see. And again, everything builds a case to help you identify what is our solution moving forward. Again, I mentioned above roof conditions. Okay.
Right.
So tilt wall construction. This is very common where, there's large concrete buildings where they tilt these walls up. There's control joints every 4 or 5 feet that usually have a backer rod in between here and sealant. These are a lot of times the original construction, they don't wrap these up and over. A lot of times these are
Oh.
large warehouse and it's kind of just let's get the roof on and they don't put a ton of money into the roof, so they may not want you to go all the way up and over and use like a proper coping or some sort of termination there that would envelop that wall.
Yeah.
But in this particular scenario, those control joints are only going to last so long with the sealant. This is just a repair I found unique that whether it's right or wrong, it was a photo ad I like to share, but that's how they tried to address this, was putting some EPDM and term barring it so that they didn't have to either go in and remove the existing sealant potentially swap out the backer rod that's behind there and things like that, and
Okay.
do it right. Again, not saying there's anything, you got to do what you got to do to stop a leak,
Right.
but look at all of the conditions above your termination if you're a roofing contractor, because you're going to get blamed for it anyways. So
Yep.
while you're there, you might want to always look at touching up control joints, making sure your termination, surface mount counter flashing, term bars are all caulked properly, and
Okay.
things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to kind of round it all out, we went over our three learning objectives, which were one, how to strengthen your approach to a roof walk, a roof evaluation through interior and exterior evaluations, and then build that systematic method for roof walks that reveals those common failure points through the perimeter first and then going into the field. And then lastly, learning objective 3, use testing on roof evidence and on roof evidence to develop that accurate repair, re-roof recommendation for that building owner or building rep. So, Lane, thank you so much. This was so informative. Any last words or pieces of advice to the people watching this Lunch and Learn on their next roof walk?
Yes. The other thing that I want to always say is there's, destructive testing and non-destructive testing.
Okay.
So the core cuts obviously is what would be determined as destructive testing. That
Right.
physically is going to give you some information. It is always advisable to potentially, if you're thinking about doing a re-roof scenario, I would still do core cuts. You're always going to want to do core cuts. But another method would be doing an infrared moisture scan of the existing roof. That's where they can actually come in and determine whether or not that existing roof system's holding water and things like that. They can mark that out, and it'll give you the opportunity to, at a minimum, determine I can still re-roof this project, but I may need to address, 10% of this existing roof and cut out the bad areas that are holding that moisture. We're going to backfill it with light, kind, and thickness, and then we can re-roof over the top of that. So having an infrared type moisture scan to go along with this particular inspection really gives you bulletproof information to be able to take to your building owner and allow him to make the best decision for his building. So that would be the other type of option in terms of testing that you could always do to help back up your roof wall.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Lane. And thank you to Mulehide for sponsoring this Lunch and Learn. If you have questions or comments or want to get in touch with Mulehide, you can go to their directory on rooferscoffeeshop.com to learn more and get in touch with them if you're interested in products or what have you. And Lane, I just can't thank you enough. This was so informative. So thank you.
Can't thank you enough for everything that you guys do for our industry. We're really proud that we're a part of this and happy to help out. And good luck to all you contractors out there. We're in a terrific industry. Go get them, and hope you guys do well.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with that as well. Thank you, everyone, for watching this Lunch and Learn, and we will see you on the next one.